This is a review of Fluencia, which was made by the makers of Spanish Dict. Some background on me is that I have studied Spanish off and on for the past 20 years. I would say that I took it from the age of 12 up until 17 in a school in upstate New York, a public high school, and I had acquired a pretty decent amount of written ability. I translated a play on my own, small play, but a play, intended for students. And then I really didn't use it much after that, for I would say a good, since from 2003 till 2015, so a good 12 years. I really didn't do a lot with the language. I would occasionally read articles and things like that, but I really didn't immerse myself back into the culture and the language until I decided to, until I met a friend, and then that friend actually lives in Mexico City, and it just really ignited my interest again. So in 2015, I would started to read articles, watch some programs and things like that. But then I decided to seriously take a refresher when I knew that I was going to Mexico City the second time. So I went once in 2016 and did some studying then, but didn't really do a course per se. And then the second time in 2017, early 2018, in February, I went again, and that's when I used Rosetta Stone. And all of this is a long way of saying that I did decide to use Fluencia as an alternative to Rosetta Stone, just to see where things were at. So I will kind of give a comparison a little later on in the video. So for Fluencia, it's made by the makers of Spanish Dict, who also, if you look up words and you try to translate them from English to Spanish, a lot of times their links will come up, and it's like an online dictionary. And Fluencia took me overall, kind of the short of it is, the quick review of it is that I definitely recommend it. It did take me from what I would say is a high beginner up to, I would say, mid to high intermediate. And I did this from November 2018 to February of 2019. So mid-November to all the way till a couple days ago. Yesterday, actually. And I found that the material was engaging. And I was also trying to move through this material pretty quickly because, like I said, the majority of it was a review. I would say that right from the beginning, I learned some things that I didn't know, which included that MA at the end of the word a lot of times will mean that the word is masculine, and that always threw me before. So on words like clima or problema, I wouldn't always know that it was masculine or feminine, except to having to remember it. So that did help me. And the way Fluencia is organized is it starts with a conversation. Then you can click on it at any point in time to get the translation of the conversation. They are actual voices, voice actor work. Then after that, it does some vocabulary. They'll have a grammar component, usually more vocabulary, and then maybe a phonetics component or pronunciation component. And then they'll have a cultural component that's just in English. And then after that, there'll be maybe one more vocabulary component and then a review. And the review tests everything that you learned. A lot of the material is taught through both clicking the images like you would on a Rosetta Stone, but there is English in this, and it really helps to clarify some of the grammar points. For example, it goes through the subjunctive a lot and goes through the different usages of the tense, and they go through and then refresh information and review information that you've already learned, just to make sure that you have a pretty good base of knowledge. Personally, I went through and did the review lessons and made sure that I had at least an 85 or higher, just so that I knew that for the purposes of reviewing this, I wasn't just speeding through the lessons. Usually it took me about 3 times to get to that, because I would just do them and then do them again and then do them again. And I really found that for writing and for especially grammar, like verb tenses and verb usage, this was a great product. It also has some pronunciation. The cost is also something that you may be wondering about. So you get 10 lessons for free, and then after that, you have to pay. So it's $15 a month if you do the monthly. I think it's about $8 a month if you do the yearly. I just wanted to get this done quickly, so I decided to go through it quickly and just do the monthly. So in all, I did 3 months, and it cost me a little under $45. So I would highly recommend it. I did use Rosetta Stone back last year, and while I found that it certainly helped me to feel comfortable with the language, listening to the language, and it had more in terms of conversation practice, I thought that it didn't help with grammar that much, because I really find that you need the English in order to understand grammar. You can, to some degree, get it through osmosis by being exposed to a lot of Spanish over and over again. But I think that with some of the intricacies of, for example, when you use, like, I hope that you come to the party, or I hope that you are well, then you're going to use the subjunctive, and it's usually espero que, subjunctive verb, and then, from there, or you might use ojalá, and then use the subjunctive there. With Rosetta Stone, I don't even remember it getting to the subjunctive, and if it did, it didn't necessarily give me a reason. It didn't give me any English reasoning, because I don't use English at all, but it also didn't give me a solid way of knowing when I couldn't use it, or when I shouldn't use it. So I would say that, and Rosetta Stone at that time, it cost me $50 for 3 months, so about the same. If I were to take them and just, use them if I were to recommend one over the other, I would definitely go with Fluencia, because you really get a lot of vocabulary, you get a lot of grammar, and I think reasonably it could take somebody, if they weren't doing it every day. I basically did a unit a night, if I could, give or take, and that's about 7 little mini lessons, or 7 lessons if you want to call them that, a day. I did about 7 of them a night so that I could get through it quicker. I think if you were to take your time and really absorb the material to a point where you wouldn't necessarily, some of my retention wasn't as strong as it could have been, because I did try to move through the material quicker, because I wanted to be able to use it more in, my writing and things like that. I would say that it's definitely worth it, and I think that it does a really good job of making the lessons relatively fun, and incorporating information in a way that builds upon itself. So my only real critiques and criticisms of Fluencia would be some of the speakers I couldn't quite understand, because they use a lot of different accents from different parts of Latin America. And one of them, a lot of times, I just wouldn't be able to make out a couple of the words that he was saying. If he said, like, La biblioteca está en la ciudad, it might sound more like La biblioteca está en la ciudad, and I really just couldn't understand it. It was really kind of it almost seemed like it left out some letters. But again, this was to show some regionalism in Spanish, and I think overall is better for the learner to some degree, because then you get more than just the standard teacher who will certainly speak clearly, slowly. I mean, they never spoke really quickly or indistinctly, but it was quicker and not as slow as maybe a foreign language teacher would speak. So overall, I think it's definitely worth it. You can try it out. So you can go to Fluencia.com and try out the program. You can use it on your phone. The only thing you lose there is the speech recognition abilities. And I think that it's definitely a good investment. And I think after this, I'm going to be looking at some other options and some other products, but I don't think that there's going to be that many that will push me beyond where I'm at, outside of actually going to, say, a class, that's at a more intermediate, advanced level, or reading or things like that. But anyway, that's about all. And I hope that this review was useful. And you can leave any comments in the comment section. Thank you, and have a great day.